Fast-paced mechanical play is one of the most addicting things about League of Legends. It's one of the main draws for most people, and it is also really important when it comes to climbing the ladder. If you're able to consistently outplay the opposition mechanically, then you're going to be coming out with a lot more wins than you normally would if you can't. Today, you're going to be learning some tips geared towards helping you improve mechanically as a player. I know these tips work because I use them myself to improve as a player, so stick around towards the end so you can get the most from this video. So make sure you like the video and get your GameLeap Premium sub right now. This will give you access to all of the juicy content on our website, and we're posting up to 5 new videos from Challenger players every single day. Now, without further ado, let's get right into tip number 1. And if you want to get better at the game mechanically, then you gotta know what the mechanics actually are. Now, this might sound obvious, but if you're playing a champion like Riven and you don't know what her animation cancels or her combos are, then you're never going to be able to pull them off in a game. The League of Legends wiki, champion mains, Reddit pages, and discords, and high-rated champion mains players are all going to be very good. If you want to learn what the combos are, you can oftentimes ask a high-rated Riven player, for example, and they'll send you in the right direction to learn those combos. You can also find a lot of really good stuff on YouTube just by searching what you're looking for. Sometimes you're not going to be able to find it, but more often than not, League is a pretty big game, so somebody will have made a video on something, usually. Now, this one was pretty obvious. I just wanted to give you guys some good resources that you can start with that will help you find this knowledge a lot faster. Now, the second tip is gonna, again, be a fairly obvious one, but you gotta practice the mechanics. Let me tell you what that entails. It does not mean that you just go into ranked games and spam games on this champion until you get it right. This is not going to allow you to build that muscle memory in a quick and efficient way. Yes, you will get better, but it's going to take forever. If you want to develop muscle memory really quickly, I suggest you go into Practice Tool. Muscle memory is the main thing that carries your mechanics. If you don't have to think about what you're doing and you can just do it off of instinct, off of muscle memory, then you're going to be able to do a lot more in a game. When you see players pull off something really impressive on something like Riven or Yasuo, it's not because they're thinking about it as they're doing it, it's because they just automatically do it. This is something they've done so many times that it's second nature to them. Practice Tool is going to be the best place to develop this muscle memory. If you're a jungler, you can practice your combos on camps. This is going to be really good. If you want to, you can practice it in normal games, but I would not recommend ranked. ARAM can also be a really good game mode to do this, but it's kind of hard to get the champion that you want in ARAM, so this is not a way to consistently practice. If you do end up with it, then cool. Definitely work on that muscle memory, but if not, then you really can't practice the champion if you're not playing it. All right, tip number 3 is limit test whenever you can. Now, this tip is going to apply again to normals and ARAMs. The idea is when you limit test, you're going to be pushing the boundaries of what you can do physically at the moment. Every time you limit test and you pull off something new, that means you're getting a little bit better. It might be a teeny amount, but it's better than nothing. The more frequently you're limit testing, pushing your boundaries, seeing these tiny little micro improvements, the faster you're going to improve in general as a player mechanically. The most important thing about this tip is you want to make sure you are not limit testing in ranked. This is a game mode that you should be playing to win, not to improve. Tip number 4, make sure you're playing while you're fresh. This is one that a lot of people don't actually end up abusing. A lot of people will play when they're tired, when they're not at 100%. Now, I understand most people have real life jobs or they're in school or whatever, right? So they might not be able to play well at 100%. But if you're completely exhausted, a lot of the time, it's not going to even be worth trying to practice and improve at that point. You're not going to get anything from that practice. You want to make sure that your practice is quality and that you're playing while you're fresh. If you're tired and just looking to wind down after a day at the office or at class or whatever, then my advice is just to play to have fun. Don't play to improve. You want as much of your practice to be high quality practice as possible. Playing while you're fresh definitely ensures this. While I was working overtime at a warehouse job, I definitely felt this one. The only time that I could actually get some quality practice in was on the weekends when I didn't have to work. If this is the case for you, then I would suggest doing what I did and only practice on your days off. For your other days, you can definitely still play, but like I said before, I would focus on enjoyment for those ones if you're too tired. All right, on to tip number 5. We're halfway done. This one is you're going to want to make sure you're playing every single day. Now, again, this one does not mean you have to be getting quality practice in every single day. The main idea here is just try to sneak one game of League in every single day. It doesn't even need to be ranked. It can just be an ARAM. What this allows you to do is it allows you to prevent yourself from getting rusty after taking a 3-day break from League. I think we all can tell when we've taken a few days off of League because our first game back is just awful. If you are able to play one game a day, I found that really helps you maintain that muscle memory. It helps you not have to really warm up as much before games. You don't get rusty. It's really, really helpful. This is one that I've felt myself personally a lot because on the days that I record, I don't play League. So a lot of the time, I am not going to be playing League for about 4 days straight. And my first day back, all of the games are just very low quality. I'm not playing all that well. It takes me 2 or 3 games to get back into the swing of things. And if I'm just able to play 1 game a day, it's so much better. All right, tip number 6. Make sure you play as many games of one champion as you can in a row. If you're working on improving your mechanics for one champion, then spamming as many games on that champion in a row without games of other champions in between is going to go a very long way. In my experience, just like you have to warm up when you start playing League for the day, you also have to warm up when you start playing a champion. And if you play different champions in between, then this means you're going to have to start getting used to the champion you're currently playing again. However, if you play 10 games of Riven in a row, then you're already used to Riven. You warm up with Riven on the first game of the day, and then those next 9 games, you're able to really push your limits. If for the first 5 minutes of the game, let's say, you have to focus on CSing, getting used to your cooldowns again, getting used to your combos, this is time that you could have spent practicing if you never stopped playing that champion in the first place, if you didn't take a game break from that champion. Now, I know there are a lot of players out there that just can't bring themselves to play the same champion over and over and over again. I definitely feel that. Even I get bored of playing the same champion over and over again. But if you are able to do that, you're going to improve faster. All right, on to tip number 7, which is our first tip that just isn't really champion specific whatsoever. Remember, there is microplay that's not champion specific, something that you're going to be wanting to do regardless of what champion you're playing, and this is typically movement. As a result, tip number 7 is you want to master your movement. This is going to be using stuff like the wiggle, orb walking, and kiting to your advantage. This is something that's going to be harder for some players to master than others. The reason behind this is because every single champion has very small differences when it comes to auto attacks and movement and hitboxes, etc. Orb walking is going to be different from champion to champion because auto attack frames are different from champion to champion. Kiting, again, going to be different because auto frames are different. The wiggle might be more or less effective depending on your champion model size. Just because it's hard though does not mean it's not worthwhile investing time into. So let's just quickly cover what all of these things are going to do for you and how you can practice them. Now, first up is what I like to call the wiggle. This is when you're just moving back and forth very, very quickly. You'll see a lot of really high rated players do this. Now, this is not players being ADHD or showing off their giga high APM. No, this actually does serve a purpose in game. See, when you're moving back and forth very quickly like this, it allows you to pretty much dodge skill shots a lot easier. If you're standing still or pathing in the same direction, it's a lot easier to hit a skill shot on you because all you have to do is aim towards the center of where they are or where they will be. If they're not changing the direction of their movement frequently, then finding out where they're going to be or where they are is a lot easier. When you're wiggling back and forth, you don't know where the center of their champion model is going to be. when that skill shot arrives to them, so they're going to have a lot easier of a time dodging. Now, there are a lot of players in Diamond that also use this tactic, but they use it wrong. How do they use it wrong? Well, because they're just sitting there wiggling, right? And then somebody throws a skill shot at them and they don't stop wiggling. Wiggling should be used to help you dodge skill shots. So when somebody throws a skill shot, you then react to it in whatever direction you need to react. If you're not reacting when people throw things at you, then this is going to be completely useless. So how do we perform this? Well, we click back and forth close to our champion model over and over again so we can wiggle back and forth. And then the key thing here is you know when to dodge when you see the particles on an animation start or when you see the enemy champion stop moving. That's right, you can start reacting to a skill shot that might be coming your way before it actually starts going towards you. There are some champions like Syndra who don't need to stop to cast, which make it a little bit hard to play against, but most champions do have to stop in order to cast, and this is why the wiggle is so strong against those champions. When you see them stop in order to start casting their ability, you stop wiggling and you start dodging. This is one of the hardest mechanics in the game to master, and like I said, even most Diamond players cannot use this tactic right. Hopefully I've provided you enough information to start at least attempting to use it right, but do not expect to get this right off the bat. Like I said, it's one of the hardest micro mechanics to master in the entire game. Even the difference between how well I do it and how well somebody like Faker does it is absolutely massive. When you do this perfectly, it's pretty much impossible to hit you with anything. Now, the next part of movement is going to be orb walking and kiting, and this is moving between autos. These two things are pretty close to the same thing. Orb walking just means moving in between your autos, whereas kiting means moving backwards in between them. Orb walking more specifically refers to cutting off the back end of the animation of your auto attack. You see, auto attacks have a full animation, but you don't need to wait for that full animation to play in order for the auto attack to go off. There are two parts to the auto attack animation, and we call these the wind up and the back end. The wind up is the more important part of the auto attack. If you cancel the auto attack with a movement command while you are in the wind up portion of the auto attack animation, then you will cancel the auto attack itself, and this means you don't do damage. However, the back end of the auto attack animation is completely useless. This part does not have to play, and you can issue a movement command to cancel it. Once your auto attack windup finishes, you can issue a movement command, and this will allow you to orb walk. Now, windups are a little bit different between melees and range champions. Melees, you know that your windup is done basically when your damage goes off, and then you can start moving as soon as the damage goes. For ranged champions, you know that your windup is done when you see the particle from your auto attack animation start moving towards the enemy champion. As you get higher and higher raid, you'll realize that these are just some ground rules for auto attack animations. Every single champion's is different, and they have a different wind up and a different back end. This is only something you really should invest more time into past this point if you're Diamond though. Up until Diamond, this is just enough information for you in order to master this mechanic. Now again, kiting is going to be the same thing, but just moving backwards. So, how do we master kiting and how do we master orb walking? The best way I've found to do this is to realize that there's a certain cadence or rhythm to your auto attacks where you want to be canceling the back end of them at the same time after each auto. Getting used to that rhythm or that cadence is going to be a little bit harder, and remember that it changes with the amount of attack speed that you have, and this is why it's such a hard mechanic to master, but start getting used to that cadence with variable amounts of attack speed. For champions like ADCs, this is going to be a lot harder because your attack speed is just so variable throughout every stage of the game, so this is going to take a lot of time and effort. But for champions like Aatrox, who will always have the same amount of attack speed because he doesn't build any, this is going to be a lot easier. If you don't fully understand this, that's okay. It's not something that you really need to master until you get to Diamond. You just want to try to start. You don't need to perfect it. Just try to start moving in between your auto attacks as much as possible whenever you can. And you don't need to, again, master the wiggle, but if you're moving back and forth in lane, it's going to make you a little bit more unpredictable, harder to hit. All right, tip number 8 is you want to try to predict what the enemy will do. Essentially what this does is instead of reacting to it, you already know what they're going to do. So as soon as you see it, you have a plan on what you're going to do. You don't have to form that plan while it's happening. A good way to understand why this is so strong is just imagine if you were playing the game 1 second in the future and you already knew exactly what every single thing was going to do in a team fight, no matter what it was, if it's a tower, a champion, whatever. If you can predict this sort of stuff, then you get closer to being that 1 second ahead. It makes it easier for you to play the game. You don't have to be as mechanically sound because you already know what to expect. Some of the most mechanically impressive clips are when people react to something coming out of a brush, for example. But if they already expected that to come out of the brush, then it's not as impressive from their standpoint. Another really good example of this is Fiora and her parry. Parrying on Fiora is a very important thing, but if you already expect somebody to use some sort of CC on you, then as soon as you see that CC, you can parry right away. While it is more important on some champions, you should be doing it to some degree for every champion you play. Expect that Malphite to ult you, be ready to flash it. This sort of stuff allows you to play the game at a mechanically higher level than you normally would. You don't have to make that decision when you see him start to ult. You've already got it in your mind that this is how you're going to react. All you have to do is actually react in that way. Tip number 9, whenever possible, try to play against players who are better than you, or at least as good as you. This means probably playing ranked. A lot of the time, normals is a very inconsistent queue. It's sometimes going to put you against players that are better than you. Sometimes it'll put you against players that are a lot worse than you. So normals is a little bit inconsistent. This means playing ranked. Ranked is going to be more consistent in that it's going to match you with players that are closer to your skill level. By playing against players who will challenge you, this allows you to consistently practice your mechanics. If somebody never mechanically challenges you, then you're not going to improve mechanically because there's no challenge, there's no practice happening. This is why when you play a lot of ranked games in one season, you typically see more improvement, especially mechanically. Finally, number 10 is get in the zone. This is a tip that combines a lot of our previous tips already. Basically, there's a certain mental space that you can get into while playing where you're just playing on fire. You're doing everything right, you're reacting properly, and you are able to just play like a mechanical god. I don't know how to explain it other than saying this. Now, I can't tell you how to get into this zone. All I can tell you is if you are able to get into this zone, you're going to play really well. And it's different for a lot of people. What works personally for me is I will listen to one song on repeat and just play. Audio is really, really important to me, and there's certain songs that just make me feel a certain sort of way. And when I'm listening to them, I play out of my mind. So I play this song on repeat, I focus up, I play, and I'm able to play out of my mind. Again, this is going to be different for everyone. The way I found out that music works for me is because when I was in high school, music got me into the zone when I was working out. So that's how I found out. If there's a certain something that just gets you super focused and feeling really good, then try doing that thing while playing League. If you enjoyed today's tips, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com, where we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion-specific courses. So if that is something that interests you, make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. As always, I'm Panther. I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.